host of Context and Clarity and Context and Clarity Live. And I'm joined today by Zach Waters, who is the CEO of Black Swan Risk Management. Zach is a risk management expert. And the reason that we're here, we're going live today for just a few minutes to talk about the first ever Context and Clarity workshop, which will be this Friday, May 27th, from 1 until 5 p.m. Eastern. So you can translate for your own time zone there, 1 to 5 Eastern. It's the one-day workshop, 4 pillars of risk management for small firm architects. I say we, but really it's Zach. Zach is the expert. He's going to be presenting all of the content. And as I say that, I think about, okay, well, this is another one of those webinars. This is another one of those workshops to sit through. But I know Zach pretty well. And this is not going to be a sit back and be bored and take notes and, just listen in. Zach is very engaging. He loves the engagement, the back and forth, the Q&A. So this is going to be a very customized experience for you. I'm just saying that right off the bat. But Zach, thanks for joining me today to talk about this 4 pillars of risk management workshop that we're going to do on Friday.
Well, thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm excited. I've been looking forward to it. We've put a lot of work into this. We put a lot of content, a lot of deliverables that we have for this. So I'm really excited for the folks that are signed up.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a great time, and actually, maybe you know this, maybe you don't. If you're watching this either live or on the recording, I see Scott Thrift. Hi, Scott. He says, "Good morning, gentlemen." Scott's in San Francisco. If you don't know this, we ran a challenge a week ago. It was the 5-day build your own risk management plan challenge. And I think that most people that went all the way through that challenge were really amazed at the amount of information and the amount of access, the number of questions that they were able to ask and get answered. And really, this is a continuation in a way. It's digging deeper. I'm going to let Zach talk about what it really is. But if you went through the challenge, this is the normal next step, right? The natural next step, I should say. If you miss the challenge, don't worry about it. I mean, this will be greatly beneficial. It's great to have those 5 days of little micro learning and homework sessions and all of that. But if you missed it, that's all right. You're not gonna start at a disadvantage when we kick off the workshop Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. So, Zach, with that, why don't we talk about why someone should participate in this workshop? I'm assuming because of our community, the EntreArchitect community, the Context and Clarity community, all of your community of everybody, all of your fans of Black Swan. I'm assuming that we're going to have a lot of small and medium-sized architecture firms represented. So with that in mind, if we frame it in that way, why should somebody go through this 4 pillars of risk management workshop?
Right. No, that's a good. So let's start with why. And I love that book by Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
I told the story on Monday of the challenge last week. Feels like a lot longer, but it was last week.
Like
a story of when I was 16 years old. I got my driver's license and I was operating a vehicle at very high speeds. I think I said 90. More than I think about it, it was over 100 miles an hour. But I'm 16 years old, and generally when you're 16 and you get your license, you feel invincible. And I was driving incredibly fast, not worrying about anything that might go wrong. And the point of that story is there is risk whether I choose to acknowledge it or not, right? If I make a hair mistake at 100 miles an hour, that mistake is magnified greatly. And so there's a couple parallels to be drawn, which is one, we got into this thing called architecture, right? We signed up. Most people do it not because they're not trying to get rich. They're not trying to do anything there. It's a passion. It's a calling, right?
Yep.
But there is risk, and there is a disproportionate amount of risk, right? And we'll touch on that a little bit more. But the other thing that I've noticed, especially, I mean, everybody right now, but especially small firm architects, because you're having to wear so many hats, is that you tend to be moving at breakneck speeds back and forth, doing all of the jobs that need to be on a firm. And when you're moving very fast like that, little things that get missed can have severe consequences. So that was kind of the impetus for building this and developing a risk management program. Was let us walk through a framework so that you can get these things all dialed in, and then you can continue to move fast through your firm, knowing that you have at least a foundation there to be able to manage risk. You have some systems in place, which we'll go through in the challenge. You have some ways of thinking, and then some general principles to follow. So that's what we're hoping to be able to deliver on Friday.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And it's, as I said in the very beginning, if you don't know who I am, I host these things called Context and Clarity. It's a daily conversation with small firm architects around the world. And every Thursday we do what we call Context and Clarity Live, where we interview special guests. So the privilege that I have is to be able to uh, be in direct contact and talk to a lot of small firm architects and medium-sized firm architects all around the world. And one thing that I hear over and over and over again from leaders of these types of firms is, yeah, we've got insurance, or sometimes, no, we don't have insurance. Actually, I
Right.
had that conversation last week, I think it was. But yeah, we've got insurance. That's great. Having insurance is a component, right? That's not a risk management plan. It's a
Right.
component of that.
Right.
Or yeah, we use if you're in the United States, we use the AIA contract documents. That's fantastic, great place to start. But that's not a plan. It's a component of the plan. Or we have these, we have an attorney review our contracts or whatever it is, and I hear a lot of bits and pieces, components of risk management, but very rarely, I mean, almost never do I run across a professional, a leader of one of these firms that says, yes, I have a comprehensive risk management plan. I know you have your four S's.
Right.
We can talk about that in a minute, but I have this comprehensive risk management plan that covers my insurance and my contracts and what happens when I go in the field and what happens when I'm storing documents and all of these things. And so to me, that's why I'm really passionate about the challenge that we did a week ago and this workshop that we're going to do on Friday, because I don't practice anymore. I'm just throwing that out there for everybody. I don't practice anymore, but the fear of something going wrong, what's my risk versus my exposure, and all of those different things, I would like for nothing more than for every small firm and medium-sized firm architect in the entire world to have a plan in place that reduces that risk, or at least helps to manage that risk and reduces that fear of, what if something goes wrong? Because I think that to me, again, it's been a minute since I've actually practiced, but that constant, what if this and what if that, or, what if this client or what if that contractor, um, I, I don't think that's any way to live. So
Yeah.
that's why I
I
want
agree.
people to go through this. So I mentioned the four S's. What are the four S's?
The four S's that I coined on Context and Clarity back in September of last year are what are you signing? What are you seeing? What are you sending? And what are you saving? So, what are you signing as a contract? It's where we take on the majority of our liability, and where Friday is going to be very heavy into contracts. We've actually got the approval from Mark to share the hybrid proposal, the Entree hybrid proposal. We're going to walk through that. So, if you're a member of Entree, if you don't already have access to it, go download it right now. That is going to be a huge part of it. I'm going to give you some of the secret language, some of the good clauses that I've gleaned from attorneys over the years. We're going to edit a few things. It's a wonderful document. We're going to customize a little bit more for firms. So that's what are you signing? What are you seeing as site visits? Going out, contract administration, right? Not construction administration. We went through that last week. We got plenty to talk about there. We could probably spend 4 hours on it. But then what are you sending and what are you saving? So what are you sending is a broad or a narrow way of saying a broader communication plan, right? How are you communicating with everybody? How are you communicating with your clients? How are you communicating with your team, the design team as a whole, the contractors? What does that look like? And then what are you saving? What does your document retention program look like? And we are going to walk through at the end of the workshop. You will have a document retention program for your firm. So it's a plug and play. We'll customize it for you, but that's a big part of that. So
yeah, that's for anybody that missed the challenge or didn't participate in the challenge last week. I have full faith that we're probably going to talk about cell phones and
yeah,
digital camera.
it's always a hot topic, and I get
Yeah,
it. It's a big one, but
yeah,
yeah, we'll spend some time there. We're going to add some new stuff though, and I know that is a concern. One of the questions that's come up, which is like, if I did the challenge, what's the point of doing the workshop? The way I think about this, I'm going to steal a phrase from Gary Vaynerchuk. It's clouds and dirt, right? The challenge is clouds. It's a 30,000 foot view. It's a general way of thinking things. We definitely did some Q&A and we had some great stuff, but it is, it's just general topics and you kind of take them and make them what you will. The workshop is dirt, meaning getting into the nitty gritty, the execution of this is what this should look like. Here is a systematized, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plan to be able to walk out with, so that literally, I think you said this, so that you can sleep better at night, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's not going to prevent everything from going wrong, but it's going to make it so that when something presents itself, you will have at least thought through the possibility of what you would do if this happened, and then you've got some rules in place to follow. So that's kind of the difference between the two, if you will.
yeah. I like it. I mean, it's about managing this. We're not going to ever be
Right.
able to remove the risk. I mean, that's just not
Yep.
going to happen. But how do you manage this? Um, Before we get into sort of the actual agenda for the workshop, a couple of administrative, I don't know if that's the right term for this situation. Maybe it is. Administrative reasons that you may want to consider the workshop is, number one, if you are a member of the EntreArchitect Academy. If you're not familiar with EntreArchitect, um, there's a Facebook page called the EntreArchitect Community Facebook group. So it's a Facebook group, not a Facebook page. There are nearly 8,000 members of that group from all around the world. And the last I looked, that on any given day, there are about 6,000 active members of that group. So asking questions, answering questions, supporting each other. It's an incredible community. It's the largest community of small firm architects in the world. Um, there's no cost to that or anything. It's just a Facebook group community. If you want to level up from there, there's this thing that we call the EntreArchitect Academy. It's a membership academy. There are different levels that give you access to documents, like Zach mentioned, the EntreArchitect hybrid proposal. So there's documents. You get access to expert trainings every month, and you can go all the way up to mastermind levels. We have mastermind groups. In fact, my mastermind group is meeting right now. So there's different levels of membership to the EntreArchitect Academy. But the reason I bring that up is that if you are a member of the Academy already, the cost of this workshop is included in your membership. So we could say it's free to you. There's no such thing as a free lunch. It's included in your EntreArchitect Academy membership. So I want to throw that out there. Another administrative reason that you might want to consider the workshop is that it's approved for 3.5 AIA CEU. That's redundant, but CEU units, continuing education units. So you attend the workshop and you go all the way through everything, and you will get 3.5 CEUs for that. So that's another thing. another administrative reason that you might want to consider
There you go.
participating in the workshop.
At bare minimum, you can check the box.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if it
We're hoping to
comes
provide a
down,
lot more than
yeah,
that.
if it comes down to, hey, I need learning units, we see this all the time, right? Inside the EntreArchitect community, we see this all the time. It's, hey, my deadline's coming up for CEUs. Where's a good place to get them? Well, guess what? We have enough learning going on inside the academy that you can fulfill almost all of your CEU requirements every year just by participating in activities like the workshop that's coming up on Friday. So, Zach, they're going to go through this workshop from
Mhm.
1 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Friday, May 27th. Um, what are what are you going to do? What are they going to learn? What are you going to walk them through?
Good question. So we've chalked out this kind of the tenets of a risk management plan, and those are mission, vision, values, which I think are incredibly important, but we're not going to spend much time on. That's more your department than mine. But it's you can't you can't have a an all encompassing conversation about risk if you don't fully understand your firm. So I know you guys have done a lot of this. Hopefully, you have kind of a general idea of what separates you as a firm and those types of questions. It's part of the total risk management plan. It's not where we're going to spend our time. We're going to start with risk tolerance and analysis because
Mhm.
I came from a world of finance. And in finance, when you go sit down to plan your retirement or your life savings, the first question they ask you is, what is your tolerance for risk? Right? Where do you land on a spectrum of like, I only believe in municipal bonds and I don't like to take risk at all, or like, yeah, give me Bitcoin, give me, give me all of the blockchain, like give me, all of the EFTs and like all of the more speculative, investments. When we talk about risk management, like these risks are out there and we can pull these certain levers, but we need to figure out where your risk tolerance is, right? Like what do you as a firm, how much time have you been practicing, what project types, all that fun stuff. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on risk tolerance and analysis. We're going to get very deep into contract review and negotiation because I think it's one of the areas, if it's all that we got done was that we understood the insurability risks of a lot of contracts. And, we went into the standard of care and the challenge. We talked a lot about scope. We'll dive into some of the other insurability questions around contracts, and we'll give you some great language. I've got some language from an attorney that has just held up so nicely in court around standard of care. But contract review and negotiation, I mean, it's not something that you as a firm owner can outsource, right? It's something that you have to do. You have to be a part of. You're the one there with the clients. You're the one there hiring your subconsultants if that's what you're doing. And so it's as important as your finances to be able to understand as a firm owner what's in my contract, what am I signing, how can I negotiate terms that are mutually beneficial. The next part of that is going to be communication and documentation, and we spent some time on that on the challenge. It's a lot of document retentions. Well, you'll get a document retention program out of it, but we'll talk a lot about setting agendas and communicating and sending follow-up emails and that type of stuff, and then we'll walk away with an actual plan of communication. We have a checklist for you there, and then last, implementation. So we're going to give you all this, right? We're going to walk through it, and I think that is probably the biggest difference between the two. Is let's talk about step by step how to implement this, not just Friday and Monday the week after, but in your practice permanently. And there's a series of steps. Some of them are pretty easy. It's as simple as just changing this language in your contract. Some of them are much harder. Some of them involve building skill sets. And so we'll kind of give you an implementation plan to be able to walk away and put this in action. Because it's great to know, but if you're not acting on it, it's as though you don't know it, right? It's the
Yeah,
same. So it's got to be implemented.
yeah. I think that's a great point. And as you were talking about that, it reminded me, it struck me that, I mentioned that a lot of firm leaders that I talk to have components, but not the overall plan or the overall system. And you and I, Zach, have talked about this before about Blair Enns in the Win Without Pitching Manifesto, that he's a big proponent of saying this is our policy,
Mhm.
right? When you get into negotiations, if someone is asking you to make some sort of concession or do something, you say, well, I'm sorry, I can't. This is our policy.
Right.
And when, as you were talking about that, it brought Blair Enns back to my mind, because that's another thing in this realm of risk management and other business systems as well, if we're honest about it. But there are a lot of us that have, okay, again, components, insurance, contract, this, that, and the other. You went through this in the challenge. Okay, we're going to have a policy for this, and we're going to have a policy
Mhm.
for this, and then this all kind of creates this. In my mind, it's a manual, right?
Yeah.
I got this manual. It's got
Right.
all these policies, because if you don't have it, you can't point to it as a
Right.
defense,
Right.
or as
And
a training mechanism either, for that matter.
and sometimes that is one of the more valuable roles that I provide to my clients is I get to be the bad guy and be the cover for them to make better choices and better decisions, which is to say, hey, my risk manager says I can't do this. My
Perfect.
risk manager says this is not in my best interest, or however you want to language that. And I was actually thinking about this, Jeff, last night. I want to do a bonus video. This isn't part of our scope, but it occurred to me at like 11 o'clock last night as I was laying in bed. I want to record a video, and we'll get it to you after the challenge for those who participate. And it is going to be me on camera explaining some of the negotiation bits that you can send to your client. So if you get some pushback, it'll be a generic. It won't be just for you and your specific client, but it'll be me as a risk manager explaining this is why this doesn't work. Here's how we make it work, and here's why it's important to you to make this insurable. It's a win-win for everybody, so that if this isn't, if you're maybe you don't have the right words, or you're not able to necessarily get in front of the client, you're just going back and forth via email, you can send this video to your client and say, hey, I can't do that. Here's why. My risk manager says I can't. So just an added bonus for those who are wanting to participate in
All
the
right,
upcoming
we
challenge.
we will get that recorded,
Yeah.
and as you're describing that, that is probably worth the price of admission to this, because I think about that. I think about negotiations that I get in, or even just back and forth in emails where somebody wants something or wants me to do something, and just my personality. I've had my goal for 2022 is to channel Chris Voss as much as possible. So for
Fellow
those of
Black
you,
Swan.
exactly, if he is another black swan.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with Chris Voss, he's the author of Never Split the Difference, and he's a former FBI head hostage negotiator. And so I'm always going, okay, what would Chris Voss do in this? How would he answer this? How would he do this? And in my mind, that's what you're doing, right? Is here's the language, right? Here's what you say, because that's exactly what I'm looking for. How should I respond to that? Well, my Zach says
Mhm.
I can't do this because,
Yeah.
and speaking from experience, remembering a long way back to when I did used to be in practice, um, that would be very valuable to have when a client, or I mean, we got into design and build and develop in our practice, but maybe a property owner or whatever. It's like, yeah, sorry. I mean, our risk manager says we can't because of this. That's worth its weight in gold in my mind.
It's the craziest thing, Jeff, because so out here in California, there is a specific school system that I'm not going to name, but it has a bunch of different schools as part of it, and it has programs for both architecture and engineering that are some of the top in the country, top in the world even. Okay. And in those programs, they teach this type of stuff, right? Maybe they don't get super duper in depth, but they teach this type of stuff. If you go as an architect and go do work on those campuses for this same entity, you will get language back that is not insurable, that is not in the best interest of the design professional. And I start to ask myself, I'm like, I mean, are we being incredibly hypocritical here? Where in this university, this top university, we are teaching architects and engineers what is acceptable and the standard of care and all this fun stuff, and then turn around and all of a sudden, as a business entity, we are creating a negotiation that is not mutually beneficial and is not
Yeah.
insurable. How do we fix that? Right. I'm working on that. That's a much bigger fight. It's going to take years, I would imagine, but that's just to show you how common it is, right? It is incredibly common that you will get people asking you to do things that are not in your favor,
Yeah.
and so we're trying to create resources to be able to give you some firepower in your
Yeah. Yeah.
negotiations. So
That's awesome. We talked about this a little bit during the challenge, right? The sophistication of clients
right,
or lack thereof. And I honestly believe, because what you're talking about exists in all sorts of contexts, throughout throughout business practice. And I honestly believe in a lot of situations, it's really, in some cases, left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing,
yep,
and or someone not really thinking through the implications of what they're asking for.
right,
And going back to Chris Voss or whoever, simply asking the question or saying, "Hey, my risk manager says I can't do this. Help me figure out how to solve this problem in a way that
right,
works for both of us." Like
right,
those are incredibly valuable conversations.
right. 100%. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I see Matt Forget is out there. He's driving and listening. Just keep listening. Don't, no more commenting. Glad you're with us, Matt, and also Christian. He's on the road as well. He says he'll watch the replay. Fair enough. So great to have a few of you join us here live. We really didn't have expectation that too many people would show up, because we didn't announce that we were doing this.
Yeah,
But we
off the
just
cuff.
wanted to, yeah, yeah, and we just wanted to just give a shout out. Like, hey, if you are a small firm architect or even a medium-sized firm architect, and you don't have a comprehensive risk management plan, then Friday, May 27th, so that's 2 days from now, from 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern, so translate it for your time zone, wherever you are in the world, we'll have the one-day workshop, The 4 Pillars of Risk Management for Small Firm Architects. And if you missed it at the very beginning, Zach Waters is my guest today. He's the CEO of Black Swan Risk Management. He's a risk management expert. He walked us all the way through a 5-day challenge a week ago, and he's going to be delivering all of the content for this workshop on Friday. Again, if you are an EntreArchitect Academy member, the cost of this workshop is included in your membership. So just remember that. Think about that. And also, this is approved for 3.5 CEU units or CEU credits. So you get that benefit as well, plus the customized comprehensive risk management plan that Zach's going to walk you through and help you develop for your practice. I think that's super important to understand as well. Um,
And
so
Jeff,
looking forward to it.
if they are signed up, if I know, just looking, we have Christian, who I think is signed up, Scott, who I think is signed up. I'm not sure if Matt signed up or not. We have a couple, or I don't know exactly how many people anymore. We're getting close to 50 or more people signed up. There's going to be an email going out from me and my team that will be sending you the deliverables that will be for Friday. So you'll have them in hand and we will walk through them together. As somebody who is slightly dyslexic and has terrible handwriting, rather than you scribbling on a legal pad, we're going to give you these documents and then the ability to go through and make edits with us in real time. So
Yeah, that's great.
keep that in mind. That is also makes it a lot easier, so that it's not something that you're learning and then you need to go back and do later. We're going to do it together. So keep an eye out for that email and those deliverables.
Yeah, that's great. And if you did or I guess didn't participate in the challenge, the deliverables are top notch. And like Zach said, we're gonna get a video recorded with with basically your get out of jail free card kind of
Yep.
thing from Zach. Um, so sign up. Let me put up on the screen. There's a link now at the bottom left of the screen. Just type that into your browser, EntreArchitect.com/risk workshop, and that's the registration page. Check that out. Join us Friday from 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern for the 4 pillars of risk management for small firm architects. Zach is going to be delivering all of that content, and it's going to be fantastic. So, Zach, thanks for joining me today. Thanks for doing this little preview. And
Absolutely.
everybody else out there watching this on the replay or even live now, we look forward to seeing you in the workshop on Friday.
Thanks a
All
lot,
right.
Jeff.
Thanks, everybody.